Welcome to this video of aspireforgmat.com. Before attempting this question, please take the practice test at www.aspireforgmat.com and then verify your answers against this video, which will be available after you answer the question at our site. The link for the free Aspire for GMAT course is also available in the description box below. Just register on the site and enroll for the course. There are many such tests available. If you have any doubts or queries that you would like us to clarify, post in the GMAT forum and we will answer your questions. Our instructors can also solve these problems in a video which will be available at our site for your benefit. Okay, the next problem we are going to deal with is this one. It's a simple one. What you need to take care of while dealing with such questions is that the steps should be pretty clear and you should be able to sort it out. Instead of just doing it in mind, it's better scribbling down on a paper, because it sometimes confuses you, because while taking the first and the second option separately, we often mix them together in such simple questions, because we know that this is a question that we can attempt under 2 minutes. Often while working this out in our minds, we tend to mix up both the options before we are supposed to. That is, while considering maybe option 2, you actually by mistake mix up option 1 and give the wrong answer. So in such questions, it's always better to scribble down on a pad. So this one just says that n is a member of the set and the set has around 6 elements. Now, and it asks for what the value of n is. There's no further question, that is no further information given. Now, the first information that is given is that n is even, and the second one says n is a multiple of 3. So let's just try solving this. This is what the question said. N is a member of this particular set and the set consists of these 6 elements. Now what is asked for is a simple thing, the value of n. So if you can determine the value of n, it shouldn't be in a range, it should be a particular value. And if you can determine that, you don't need to determine that, but if you're sure that one of these options do determine that, that's sufficient. Often in such questions, the mistake that we do is we do not know to what level or to what amount should we do the calculation. We either spend a lot of time doing a lot of calculation which is unnecessary, even though we know the answer is sufficient or the option is sufficient, it can give us a value, a constant value, or whatever is asked for in the question. We tend to find that answer when we don't actually need to. This doesn't ask you for the answer, it just asks you for sufficiency of data, so sufficiency of information. So in such questions, sometimes we just spend a lot of time solving for the correct value, when all we need to do is just find out whether we can get a value and we can get a fixed value. Sometimes we waste time like this. Sometimes we waste time trying to sort it out in our minds, and instead of just putting a pen on paper, because we think we are going to waste a lot of time if we write it on paper. Sometimes we make silly mistakes when it comes to such problems. So this is one of those problems in which you can solve this problem under 2 minutes. So the first statement says n is even. So just scribble down the even elements in this. There are 3 elements. We are not sure which of these 3 elements n is. While considering option 2, okay, so the first one is insufficient, clearly, because we don't know which one of these 3 elements n is. Now while considering option 2, often we might take option 1 into consideration and get the answer immediately and say the answer is B, because 2 is sufficient, A is not sufficient, 1 is not sufficient, so the answer must be B. But just remember, while taking down or while considering option 2, there's a risk of considering option 1 together along with it. Now this would only happen in the initial part of the preparation, and as you get used to doing more data sufficiency questions, you would not do such mistakes, hopefully. Now n is a multiple of 3. Multiple of 3 in the sets. In this set, there are 3 elements: 33, 36, and 42, and also 39 actually. So this is insufficient. When you take them together, luckily in this one, you still see even elements that are multiple of 3. You have to take both of the criteria into consideration. So even elements that are multiple of 3, you still see 2 sets, 2 values, 36 and 42. Since there are 2 values, this is also insufficient. There is only one option among these 5 that allows you to say that both of these options are not sufficient together or individually, either together or individually, and that's E. So in this case, E is the right answer. But before you go ahead with such an approach, it's always better to, unless you're sure of how to proceed with such a question, it's always better that as soon as you solve a particular option, as soon as you know whether A is sufficient or insufficient, you mark out certain options. You should know that when you say 1 is insufficient, you should know that it can't be A, it can't be D, because A says that 1 is sufficient, D says that 1 and 2 are sufficient individually, so it can't be A and D, and you have B, C, E. Those are the only 3 options remaining, even though you haven't tested out the second option. So this would give you a higher probability, especially when you're stuck for time or something. This might give you higher probability or chance of getting this option right, getting the right answer, because if you have marked out A and D, you have a 33% chance approximately of getting the right answer. When you mark out the second option, you know that that's insufficient. You should know again that B is not the answer, so it has either got to be C or E, and therefore again you have a 50% chance of getting it right. So even if you don't have the little bit of 30 seconds or 1 minute remaining, you don't have enough time to solve it together or something, you still have a 50% chance. Instead of just leaving the answer blank, just mark an option out of these 2 choices and you still have a 50% chance of getting it right. So it's always better planning it out this way so that you can make an educated guess, and it always helps because while starting your test, you have those 5 minutes when you are supposed to read guidelines, etc., and in all probability you would have already read it in your GMAT prep software. So what you do is, at that point of time, you just create this chart somewhere on a corner, create some 20 to 30 such, scribble it down pretty fast, 20 to 30 such writings, and then you can just mark out for every question, just put a 1 and mark out which are the non-possible answers and which is the right one, which you think might be a possible answer, and you can make an educated guess instead of just randomly guessing something. So in this case, we come to the answer that E is the right answer.